Let me get started here. This is a special meeting of the Affordable Housing Board, the Village of New Paltz. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Wednesday, May 15th, 5 p.m. The first order of business is approval of our minutes from March 27th, 2024. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Hearing none, carries. Before we jump into the new business, let me just offer some housekeeping things. Obviously, the purpose of our discussion here today, for those in the audience, is talk about the New Paltz Apartments project that is going to be out on, it's proposed to be out on Route 32 south of the campus. Because I'm a member of the Village Planning Board, I find that we should not be discussing anything to do with the site plan. We are here to focus on affordable housing and only affordable housing. So if I think the conversation is drifting too far into the issues of the site plan, I will have to stop that conversation, because that is only appropriate at the planning board level. And our purpose as a board is to worry about affordable housing. The other thing is, I want to make sure that everyone understands that the Affordable Housing Board is, it's called an administrative board in the local ordinance. So that means we're not simply an oversight, a policy oversight board. We make decisions and we're not advisory. And I'm bringing this up because there's been confusion about this in the past. Some people thought that we were just an advisory board. We are not. We're an administrative board, and the decisions that we make regarding applicant eligibility, placement on the list to be referred for apartments, those are our decisions, and those decisions are appealable to the Village Board of Trustees. I think I answered my next thing. I wanted to make sure that the applicant in this case was familiar with affordable housing terminology, because I tend to sometimes use acronyms and things, and I don't want to do that. If I do it and it's unclear or you don't understand what I'm doing, please stop me. I'm not an expert in affordable housing, but I have some background. By way of background, I was a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Syracuse Housing Authority for 8 years. And I was also part of the Department of Community Development for the city for about, I don't know, 12 years. So with that said, let's move into the discussion of affordable housing units and the New Paltz Apartments.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is someone here for public comment? Can we have the public comment first?
You know, I wanted to hold that for a while. I think we need to get into it,
Okay.
because there'll be plenty of time for public comment on this whole process.
I think
believe
she
me.
has just a question, question. Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe it'll be answered within it, but I do want to understand better how, if there's been, a financial feasibility study done on how it's going to impact, racial segregation in the affordable housing allotment, based upon the current, grants from both the student body and racial breakdown of that. That's where I understand.
well, maybe we'll answer your question. So let me, I think the applicant is familiar with our affordable housing ordinance. I find it to be somewhat unique in that we are a very small village. And we are trying to implement an ordinance that has obviously local ramifications, but we're impacted by the lack of affordable housing in the entire town, in the entire county, in the entire state. So we're anxious to hear how the New Paltz Apartments plans to comply with our ordinance.
sure, I think I want to make sure that my operating company, the associates are on, I don't see them on here. You guys on by any chance?
Yeah, we're here.
Sam and, okay, you guys are, okay, sorry, I just didn't see you on video. So real quick background, Tom George with the applicant, Commercial Street Partners. I develop multifamily and student housing, really all over the country, mostly in New York, East Coast down to Florida. And, you know, we've been working on this project for many years with the town and obviously understand the affordability requirement in the town. And the purpose of this is to help clarify what our expectations are and what Peak Made, who is the operator for us on this project, is comfortable in understanding and does this elsewhere, where we have an affordable component to the apartment's operations. And so the point of us was to introduce Peak Made and introduce, you know, what they do and how they operate other facilities, apartment buildings, or, you know, specific student housing operations at other campuses privately, if this is off campus privately operated, that have an affordable housing minimum requirement and how they all interact and operate. So Sam Owen is a regional manager for Peak Made. Eric is one of their client services reps, and they're on the call with us right now that we'll let them get into it. But as we understand is that there is a 10% requirement right now by the Village of New Paltz for affordable housing in any project over 20 units, I think is what it is. So right now we're approximately at.
It's not at 15, over 20 units?
Not yet.
Yeah. It will be that, you know, right now it's at 10%, I guess that's what it is right now. And so we understand that, and we've all along said that is, you know, the law of the village, and we'll comply with it just like any other law that comes with this project, whether that's environmental or, you know, operational or, you know, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a fair housing project. It is not exclusive to students. It is open market. It is operated primarily for students. It's designed for that. We operate on a per bed lease basis. For the affordable required units, we'll operate those on a unit basis. And you know, there is no, you know, discrimination of any applicant just based on fair housing, whether that's here in New Paltz or that's in, you know, Rochester or North Carolina. Fair housing is fair housing. So we have to comply with all those fair housing laws, which Peak does for approximately 45,000 residents that they operate under. So they have an extensive experience in just managing housing across the country, and more specifically to this topic of managing affordable housing units within a student housing build project. And then there's one part, I know you didn't want to talk about site plan stuff, but just want to clarify with everybody. The design of this project is a like an individual townhouse or individual cottage style project. So you're not entering a dormitory, and it's not operated like a dormitory. Every apartment and unit and resident has their own private bathroom inside their bedroom, and they have their own private entrance in and out. So there's no shared common corridors. It is more of a neighborhood community. More representative of what maybe a village feel might be, like it is here. So you're going to naturally have a coming and going of different resident types here and there. And again, this is open to the public. Anybody can apply. Anyone can live here. And now all the properties I've developed and own and operate, we always have a mix of, I would say 95% of them are students. And then, you know, another 5% may be somebody who might be affiliated with the school or some capacity that is employed by a company that supports a school, and they're a non-student. But this is not an exclusive type of property, and does not operate in any sort of exclusivity to students. So with that, I'll introduce Sam, who's with Peak Made. She's on, and Eric Snyder with Peak Made. Sam is regional manager for Peak, and operates several of these properties we're talking about. So I'll let Sam chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Owens. I'm a regional vice president with Peak Made Real Estate. I've been with the company for just shy of 13 years, and I oversee a portfolio of assets that's 16 units total on my side of the house in my current role, but I've also overseen, various student communities in different capacities with Peak. some of which have had affordable components. My current portfolio, every single asset has some part of their unit mix with affordable units therein. So Peak has a deep bench of experience managing for different clients and partners, you know, from a host of different states with different legal and local ordinances that we need to follow with that. So over the entirety of our company's portfolio, we've probably managed anywhere between 30 and 40 properties that have had different affordable units and regulations that we've needed to oversee. So we're very familiar with how to operate those affordable units, especially, you know, if it has a mix of student renters, traditional multifamily renters, all of which is to say, very comfortable with the process. And we have, you know, all of our different procedures and property management software set up to be able to manage affordable units.
That's great. Pete. P,
P-E-A-K.
P-E-A-K.
Made, M-A-D-E. And they operate for us for a property we own in Tampa, Florida right now.
I see.
And another project that we're doing in Burlington, North Carolina.
And where is their headquarters?
They're based out of Atlanta. No, they're based out of Atlanta.
Atlanta?
Yep, and they operate all over the country. I'd probably say in at least 24 states.
Okay.
Question.
Sure.
You ready for questions?
Sure, go right ahead,
Okay.
please do.
So, I'm just curious to know how you're going to determine if you're renting by the bed. How are you gonna determine affordable housing per bed? Is it per bed? You're
We're
gonna
doing
have-
per unit, I think. We talked about this the last meeting, I think that,
With the students, I'm talking.
well, students we do by the bed.
Right,
we operate by the bed.
so will there be an affordable component for the students or no?
It's affordable for anybody who qualifies. You can't discriminate against a student
Right.
versus any other
Right,
applicant.
but you're not renting an apartment to a student, so I don't know how that's gonna work.
I'll let
Get it.
Sam jump in.
Oh, because I was gonna say, if I understood what he said before, no dormitory style corridors, it sounds like there are units that we would then get, and then the students, you might put however big they are, like 4 or 5 people in a unit, the students, right? Not
They
in a
would all have
long.
To be affordable. I just don't know how that's gonna work, right?
I'll
Maybe
defer to Sam,
Yeah.
when she
Okay.
does this.
Yeah, I can answer that. So understanding that there needs to be a certain percentage of the entire project's unit mix need to be affordable. What we would do is work with ownership to designate, you know, those 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and the proposed single 4-bedroom right now, designate those units ahead of time that those are going to be the affordable units. On the back end, then in our property management software, the rest of the project, that's set up where every renter is able to sign their own individual lease for their own bed space. So they're renting out their own bedroom and bathroom. And then for those units that we pre-designate as those affordable units, we simply turn on a setting in our property management software and give them a slightly different lease where they're leasing the entire unit, not by individual bed spaces. So that's a very easy setting. That's how we manage, you know, kind of a mixed project like this across the country. It's just the difference of designating in the lease contract itself that they're signing for an entire unit versus a single bed space within a unit itself. Does that make sense?
What you're doing makes sense. What I'm questioning is how you determine affordability for a student, right? I mean, so a lot of students get financial aid.
Yep.
And not only financial aid that are student loans, but financial grants, et cetera, where their rent is being paid by the school. And it may not be the need for that student, however, their tax return or whatever it is they give you will show a need. And I would hope that the people that are getting the affordable units are really people who need the affordable units.
Yes. Yep. That's something where if somebody comes to us and they express the interest in renting the affordable unit, they need to show us that they are, you know, participating in that through like a HUD program or a local rental agent, you know, rental assistance program with that. And regardless of the background of that renter that is applying, they have to prove that they meet the requirements to lease out those affordable units. So that's going through and then doing the various calculations based off of their monthly adjusted income, the gross income, and then a portion of any kind of those housing assistance payments. And then that's how we'll go through and vet that they're able to rent and apply for those affordable units and proceed from there.
Perhaps. Let me just stick with this point for a minute. Under our ordinance, the Affordable Housing Board is responsible for accepting the applications for people who seek affordable housing,
Yep.
determine the completeness of that application, review the application and determine eligibility, placement on a priority list. So what will happen here is if this project is approved, we will be sending you the tenants for the unit.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. So you don't have to worry about any of that. The
Yeah.
people we send you, they will be eligible, and we will tell you that either they can have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 4-bedroom unit, and you just place them.
Yep.
Okay.
The only question I have, and that's my question, if you have a 4-bedroom, I don't know, cottage, I still don't understand how that is, I'm not on the planning board. If you have a 4-bedroom cottage, we're going to have to approve 4 people or a group.
No,
Yes.
No,
No.
No.
We will approve a family, and I'm trying to get to the metric in the ordinance that determines bedroom size by family size.
No, I know that,
Yeah,
but they're only talking about having 5% non-students, which is their average across the state or the country or whatever, and we have a 10% affordability, housing, affordable housing, law, and the other 5%, if those are gonna be students and they're gonna rent a whole unit and put it aside, we're gonna have to take a whole house.
I don't think that's gonna happen that way. As I've said many times publicly, we have a waiting list of almost 100 families. We don't have one student on that list. I don't envision us having students on that list. What we have are families. And the people that we're gonna refer over to the project are gonna be families. And we look forward to them.
So we'll do it, I think what we'll probably do in the next cycle of this process as it relates to, the project approval is sit down and designate the percentages of what units, what type of units, and maybe where, and it doesn't really matter to me as much as what number of percentage of each unit type is designated for the program. And then really, you guys will manage the qualification for that and tell us, hey, we need a 2-bedroom unit for this individual for this term or whatever it is, this lease. It has nothing to do with the school, term or anything like that. We rent on a 12-month basis. And you'll have that, 10 or 15% of the units available to fill. And we'll fill them by unit, and it'll be a completely different contract. It'll be a thing like Sam said, a unit contract.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it's going to be a unit contract.
Yeah.
And even though we don't have students right now, once they start coming to you and need affordable, you're gonna
Well,
send
we're
that to us, probably.
I don't know, I'd have to ask Sam how that
Yeah,
works.
let me ask, I hate to be so familiar, but Sam, at least in New York State, I don't know about other states, but if a student applies for an affordable unit in one of your projects in New York State, how do you determine family income?
You'd have to take if they have other members of their household, if they have children or dependents, and then just calculate that household income based off of, themselves or any other adults that they're planning to apply with and have on that lease. And you would just calculate it like you would anybody else's family income. They would have to, again, provide their pay stubs for regular paying job, and you would use that. I don't know that you would use any kind of, school granted financial aid for that. You would need to look up state specifics with that. FAFSA might impact that, but you would calculate it just as you would, any other renter that applies, and at least how this is very similar to Massachusetts, where we operate a project with a significant affordable component. There are some students that they do go through the city of Boston and they will apply for affordable units. But we have to go through an ordered list of people, that have applied for affordable housing, and you're starting at the top of that list. So it's, conceivable that you might have some students that apply for this. But again, you probably already have a long list of people that have applied for affordable housing that you have to go in order of that to offer them, the affordable units as they become available. So it's not out of the question that you will get some students that join that list. But again, if they're a student background renter, their need for that housing is going to be, seasonal as long as they're in school. And as you follow those guidelines to cycle through, making sure that you're advertising the affordable units as they become available from the start of that list all the way down, again, based on application date, it's again conceivable that they might not need that housing by the time that it gets to their name on that list.
One more question. How many beds are in a room? And will that,
Single occupancy.
all the rooms are single occupancy? Okay. That's good.
But at least that's the way we operate it, yes.
But how many of those are in a unit?
Depends what we have.
Okay.
We have a mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom,
Okay.
4 bedroom and 5 bedroom.
Because what I'm thinking too, and I didn't ask this, is at what point is there a formula so we know how many units we will be?
Well, that's when we get to the next cycle.
So we're not there.
We're not there yet. Like,
Okay.
I think I think in our seeker process and our FEIS, final environmental impact statement, we use the calculation that is used by the county as to what their demand for affordable housing units are right now. And I think it was like 70% of the demand are for 1 bedroom units. I think 20 or 25% for 2 bedroom units, and the balance was 3+ bedrooms. So the predominant, I would imagine, proportion or ratio are going to be 1 bedrooms, but that's something we'll work on with the next phase of the planning process.
Okay,
And these rooms will be able to hold 2 people, let's say for married couple or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're big enough to accommodate, every single bedroom has the size that accommodates a full bed and furniture, because they come fully furnished and they have their own bedroom, bathroom. Yeah, but the affordable units, we can adjust that program, just the way we operate. The way student housing today operates, professionally run student housing, not a house chopped up, is that we provide everything. It's an all-inclusive rent. So you have your furniture, you have your utilities, you have all the things that you typically would have, kind of transitioning from home life to dormitory life now into, off-campus first apartment life.
okay, 2 questions.
Sure.
You had mentioned 12-month basis, ours is 24, 2 years.
That's fine.
So
We're
we
signing
have to work.
we're signing 24-month leases. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the other one was what we have done, now, not that we have a huge amount yet, but we've got 3 complexes. Not counting yours coming, and we're gonna get a lot more units that fall under this board. We tried to make sure that they're all not in one building, so people point out, that's the building where
No,
those
I agree
people
with
live.
you. Yeah, we've been saying that the whole time.
Okay.
They blend in with everybody else. It's not, yeah,
Be spread
anyway,
out.
absolutely. I think that was one individual board member was really concerned on wanting to isolate and segregate.
Right.
I was like, that's not how.
And that's what we wanted to avoid, right?
What we're trying to do here.
Okay,
You also, one second, sorry, Evan Snyder with Peak Made, also segregating all the affordable units to one area of the property would be dangerously breaching federal housing or fair housing. You're some block housing at that point, so legally we wouldn't be able to put all of the affordable units to one side of the property.
that's good.
What about amenities? The affordable units get access to the same amenities as the non-affordable?
Yeah, no, it is. I don't think there's any discrimination there either.
I don't know,
We have
speaking
had-
of
we have
amenities,
had
Is there gonna be a pool? Is there gonna be a barbecue area? I don't, those kinds of things.
And everyone can use that.
As far as I'm concerned, we can.
Well,
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a fully operating single entity property and you're not.
mhm. Okay.
yeah, let me just back up and say, we're not, don't take that the wrong way. We've had a project, where some of the amenities were denied to the affordable units.
Got it.
So that's why we're asking. We just want to make sure everybody gets what everybody gets,
That is somebody that rents at this community, regardless if they're somebody that pays, full market value or they're affordable. They have the same access to the office and the maintenance staff, our policies and procedures as far as operating day-to-day for things like rent questions, delivering packages, having them participate in community events, accessing those amenities. There is no difference. It is truly how the application is handled and more from an administrative back end perspective where there's that differentiation in how you handle those leases, but their lived experience at the community, that is the exact same.
Good.
That's great.
And parking, are they guaranteed at least one parking spot?
I don't think there's guaranteed parking at this property, just because we're actually. That's another.
I know it's another.
That's another
thing,
planning topic,
But say we've got
yeah, there.
working people who have a car and they have to put it someplace.
Of course, oh yeah,
There'll be
there's
plenty of parking.
plenty of.
Okay.
Yes, there'll be plenty of parking in front of your unit. There's no like reserved parking or preferred parking like that. It's just there's parking everywhere through this application. And actually, most projects I do right now, we try to get a variance to reduce the amount of parking that we need because we are always over parked every project, everywhere. I don't care where it is in the country. The parking requirements across the country are absurd. For the amount of people actually have cars. Never, ever have seen enough cars. You can get to like 70% of the amount of parking we have.
And as you mentioned, there is a bus system.
And there's a bus loop
In
here,
our
and
county, so.
actually I think even in our project, I think this project too, it has a shuttle service that we will operate third party by ourselves. Regardless of UCAD or the other shuttle services around here.
Would that be like, because you're a little further out,
Yeah,
to
you
bring
can't just
students
really go
closer
out
to
there.
campus?
Yeah, we bring students closer to campus and do a specific runs to the grocery stores
Oh,
and some of the other, or to, Amtrak or whatever it might be, so it just depends on the market. We
Right.
usually provide a service that's dedicated to the property. That helps also reduce the demand for cars.
That's great. Anything else from the board?
No, just questions. It's probably moot, but I'm gonna say it. So there are students with families.
Yeah.
And they could qualify for an affordable unit.
I can't answer that. You guys have to tell me that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like the board has to tell us that. That's, I think, the whole process. We're all just learning this for the first time, how this is gonna work. And obviously this being a large project, very large for this community. Understanding that dynamic is, I think, why we're here is to say, listen, we're absolutely qualified operator to work with your board to figure out how those rules and applicant requirements and operational requirements are going to work.
And that's something that I can just speak from the management company's perspective. That starts as soon as, the construction starts on the building. We have a pretty deep bench of like pre-opening operation policies that includes, getting in touch with you to understand the nuances of any of, the local ordinances associated with that. We then ensure that the team that's on the ground and the regional oversight from a regional manager perspective, and then myself as a regional vice president, we take all of those notes, we communicate those up to our dedicated risk and compliance team, which is one of our corporate support teams here at Peak that all of our properties have access to. And we ensure that they're then familiar with any of those like local, operating guides or nuances that we need to understand in order to successfully operate the affordable component, in the city and in the local county. And then we will go through, and there is training and compliance courses that we require our on-site team, the managerial positions, to take and recertify every single year so that they're up to date on how to handle, again, from an administrative perspective, how to handle the differences in the leases and the applications between a traditional lease and an affordable lease. So we start that groundwork even before doors open. so that again, you guys have a good working relationship with us. We understand any of the granular nuances that we need to in order to be successful here. And we set the team up for success just to maintain those standards on an ongoing basis.
That sounds great. One thing that I've said this to all the developers who come before our board. The way our ordinance reads in terms of setting maximum rents. It is convoluted. I'll admit that. But the bottom line becomes this, what we've experienced in the past. Now, I know, I understand a lot of things in this country changed dramatically in the last few years with COVID. However, I don't think this is going to change. The last time we did any, we filled any affordable units in the village, it was pre-COVID. And it was very, very difficult for us to find qualified individuals and families who could afford the maximum rents. So I would implore you to consider maybe setting rents below the maximum rent. If otherwise, if what happens in the future is what happened in the past, it took us, I think we were looking at 5 to 7 potential referrals to find one that could afford the rents. Because our maximum rents are set much higher than the family income of our applicants.
Yeah, and I would say that's not an uncommon problem. Again, referencing the project in Boston that we deal with, that is something that in the first year of operations, we realized charging that maximum limit, that was going to keep the vacancy in those units, and that didn't serve us or the people that were trying to rent those affordable units. So that's where, again, we work with our ownership groups to make those recommendations that, okay, here is the ceiling that is set by those local ordinances. However, based off of, you know, market data that we'll amass ourselves using tools like Axiometrics, things like that, we'll look at what, you know, those comparable floor plans are actually achieving from affordable renters. And we make our recommendations based off of that, still keeping in mind that we can't exceed, you know, that percentage of the AMI for the applicant. So not an uncommon problem that we have run into, and that just requires, you know, communication between ourselves as the managing partner and owners to be realistic about what types of rents that you're going to see for these affordable renters and what they can achieve with that.
That's great. That's great. Appreciate it very much. Board members, anything more?
I don't have anything right now.
That in mind, why don't we open it to the members, the public who are here?
Excuse me,
Oh,
guys, this is Michael. Thank you, thank you. I have a question. In going through this process, how should we approach the planning board now going forward? Should we say that Peak and Tom are gonna coordinate with you? Are we gonna say that we're following? Because I mean, we've put it on record that we will follow the law on every aspect of the law, but how do you want us to proceed with the planning board? Because this issue, in my view, is by far the biggest issue that we've had with the application.
well, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but let me just say this, at least for me, the discussion this evening has cleared up many of my questions. And they've been, frankly, I found it very helpful. It all makes a lot more sense to me now than it did than before we had this meeting tonight. And with respect, I'm more than willing to present this to the planning board, that we've had this conversation, that it's been a very positive conversation, I will turn to my fellow board members. I think we're moving in the right direction. I'm more than willing to share that with the planning board. And you are as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Terry. This has been very helpful because we just didn't know what we were dealing with, and now I have a better idea. I know we're waiting for the formula and so on, but thank you.
I'd like to see the designated spaces, say, let's just say this law goes through for the 15%, but it may or may not, or 10% or whatever. I'd like to see those designated spaces. Okay, we're going to have 10 one-bedrooms, you know, four bedrooms, and present it in that way, and those are gonna be our, I mean, that's what I would do.
I think
It's more specific.
I agree,
Yes.
I agree.
And,
Because the sooner we get to that answer, the more that people can say, okay, these are the units.
right, because people don't know what it looks
Yeah.
like, right? And I think, you know, the few planning board meetings that I've watched, that the questions are like, what does it look like? And I think the more you can explain what it's gonna look like, the better, the faster things are gonna
Yeah,
happen.
I agree with you 1,000%. We've said that, is that it's tough to get to that because we've been stuck in secret for so long. I mean, literally years.
Mhm.
And this conversation is then holding up our ability to actually make any progress on the plans themselves and buildings.
Mhm.
We've been doing that actually a lot. I mean, actually Secret has done a lot of site planning. So I think we're really close, and particularly because we already have a lot of these buildings designed. We'll be
Mhm.
able to see what we say, maybe not be 100% the building itself, 100%, but it's pretty darn close to what we would submit for a permit. You know, we've got those buildings we built before, so you could actually, we can look at the site plan after we get this secret application finalized. You could take a look at the site plan and see which units are where and determine those things.
I mean, I think that's the best, and maybe possibly there could be some, well, you know, I don't know how you determine 15% of the units by the bedroom. How do you determine that, right? Is it 15% of
That's
the
what
number of bedrooms in the whole
a
project?
unit, I thought we said.
Yeah, by union.
Number of beds in the unit, bedrooms in the units, the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 4 bedroom, or 5
And
bedroom.
based on what you said, you found out is the need.
Well, yeah, the recommendation, what we used for our assumptions in the FEIS, we used the recommended ratios from the county. The county did a housing study, affordable housing study, and we just used that, which was 70% 1 bedrooms and the balance between ones or twos and fours.
Well,
And that's still adjustable. We're not set in
Right,
stone.
so my question is, is that 10 or 15% of the overall number of bedrooms?
Yeah,
No.
it'd be the 10,
No.
over the 100, it would be whatever, 15% of the overall units or bedrooms, however you want to calculate it, it'll
I
be
mean, it wouldn't be.
plus or minus.
I think,
Yeah,
okay, I think that would be helpful.
okay.
Okay. That same study by the county, they broke it down into municipality also. Did you
Okay.
look what the number is for New Paltz?
I think we have, I don't have it at my
Okay,
fingertips.
I don't think it's 70% at 1 bedrooms.
But whatever the calculation is, I think we would be working with the affordable housing board to determine what that final calculation would be.
I just, I have to say, someone on the town, housing smart committee, I don't understand why anyone would be ready you on when you haven't seen their affordable housing staff. We do not know what programs they're working with. We don't know what income guidelines. We don't know what AMIs they're using. We don't know what, the subsidy, the income limits. There's nothing, there's no information here. I mean,
I'm sorry. I would draw your attention to the Village of New Paltz code. It's online. Go to section 132. All that data is there.
I'm talking about their,
Of how it works. They don't operate. I'm sorry about this. They don't operate off their guidelines. We operate off our guidelines. They don't determine eligibility at all. We do that as board. So the way we do that is in our local ordinance. And all the data that you're referencing is in that ordinance, and that's the data that we use to determine eligibility. And also how we place people on the priority list. That's all in the ordinance, and that's how it's done.
I'm aware of that, but they're not saying what their max rent is. They're not giving the rent guidelines, and how can you base it off of?
No, not yet. And that's in part because I haven't given them the max rents. I give it to them.
Only for the affordable
Yeah,
portion.
right. That's right.
Are you taking vouchers? People that might have pre-existing vouchers?
That's not a question for me.
We have in the past.
I mean, there's a lot of questions here. And I think there's over 1,000 New Paltz students who are over the age of 25. So I think the, assumption that there's not gonna be a lot of New Paltz students that need more than one bedroom that don't have kids. I don't know if that's true. I'd love to see a study on it. I'd love to see a study of the actual, which show what students need. I want data. I would want data.
Okay, but remember, we have, right now, today, we have almost 100 families that are already certified and ready to go. If a student applies now, they're number 101.
Oh, I understand. So your data is saying 100 families are already on there, and their data is saying 70% of the units will have to be one bedroom. They're conflicted. So they're looking to the data sets.
Okay, well, the best data that they can use, that we can use together, is that list. So it really doesn't matter what Ulster County says or New York State says. We have the raw data of the village of New Paltz. We'll share it with them. We can't share a lot of detail, but we can certainly share some overview data. I don't want to use the word mega data, but we can use some overview data that says our list right now. If I had to guess, just off the top of my head, right now, I would bet you our list is the vast majority of our one bedroom apartments. The vast majority. There are either one or two people on our list right now.
I disagree. There's a vast need for family housing.
I agree with you. All I'm saying is, whatever the need is in the community, we already have 100 people that are ready to go. If this thing were to open their doors tomorrow, we probably wouldn't need to move beyond our list. We could just fill it up from people. Some of these people applied years ago. The list and I hate to say this, but it's absolutely true. The list for affordable housing in the village of New Paltz rivals the Section 8 list at Rutland in terms of how long people have been on that list. There was a time when this board considered stop taking applications because people are on that list for so long.
So do you think that's a good measurement of the current need? No, because people then stop even putting their name on it. I think the need is much greater.
No, they haven't stopped. We get
But meaning that
we
there's a
get
greater
requests
need.
every month to be
That's
put on.
the need, yeah.
We review applications. Every time we have a meeting, we review more applications that go on that list.
And how does single room occupancy factor into that's below one bedroom? I mean, so they're going, one bedroom is a functioning apartment, right, with a kitchen and, its own entrance. How does single room occupancy fit into the ordinance?
It doesn't.
It doesn't
Doesn't.
have anything to do with the affordable component, which is, I think, what you said in the beginning. The affordable component will all be apartments.
Will all be apartment.
They won't be, they're not going to, and they're gonna have a different lease. Different type of lease. They're not gonna be single, they're not gonna be by the bed, so to speak.
So every single affordable unit will have a kitchen.
Yes.
Mhm.
But I don't think you're remotely near the point where you can move on to out of this discussion. I mean, you don't even know how they're going to approach. You don't know which students that have a need, right? But if a student has a need and they already received a subsidy in their home life, at home, they can't then apply for additional subsidies. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done here in the actual oversight and compliance area that you're just brushing right past. And there's been no studies done to the actual which students are going to be housed here and which ones are not.
I said earlier, I don't know there's gonna be many students in here at all in the affordable units. We have too many families that are on our list. That are priority. Because the very first criteria that puts you on the list is when you apply. So if you applied, some of our folks applied 3, 4.
So then
5
none
years
of the
ago.
students with financial need are gonna be able to get in there. So it'll be the students that don't have financial need that get in there, and that's going to automatically.
We have- As I said earlier, we have no students on our list right now, not one.
Because it's a new thing. I mean, where is it in?
No, this ordinance has been around since 2015.
I know, where is it in for the student housing? Yeah.
Well, the affordable housing is only for developers who are building over 10 units or more, so. everyone that's applied is a family of one or two people. They haven't been students. That's not to say they're not, I think students will start to apply.
No, it's an option. There's actually a viable option that they can go.
And but they're gonna get on the list.
Yeah.
They're gonna be a number of
So the
hundred.
students that can afford will be in there, and the students that can't will not.
I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? We can't
Yeah.
try and get more families in there and say that we're discriminating against students. You can't have it both ways, right? I mean.
Yeah, I don't wanna leave it hanging, I don't wanna leave that statement out there that somehow we are going to allow ineligible people to occupy these units. We will not do that. We cannot do
No,
that.
not ineligible. People, students that weren't aware of these even being a possibility, let's say students that are coming in next year and they never had the opportunity to get on this list. They will never be able to get in here, right, because of the need. So therefore, this will act as a segregation tool. It's going to segregate the students with the funds to get in here either privately or ones who don't. And I think we need to think real hard what that would look like.
I don't agree, Kate.
I don't think that's
I
true at
don't
all.
agree, and I'll tell you why.
We're not gonna
Because
discriminate against anybody.
there's a lot of financial aid in school, and that many students will not have to come here for that. They're gonna get grants and things like that, and they're gonna be able to live there. I don't think that that's gonna happen.
Do we know what the rent is gonna be? I mean, what's the rent gonna be? That doesn't mean there's questions. So I think the discussion is still ongoing.
Well, certainly it is. I mean, we,
Yeah.
truthfully, at least my understanding of where we are in the planning board, it's all in draft form. Everything is in draft. form. So, yeah, so yes, there's a whole lot of discussions that are gonna go on in the future. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
My suggestion is to sketch out those units and present that.
We-
I
we
mean,
can-
Well, that's pretty far down the road, Adele. in
Oh,
my
okay,
opinion.
well, I mean, yes, what can we do about the affordable housing component from our committee?
We can make assumptions on where generally what the unit mix is gonna be and where the general locations of those units are. We have that already. We've actually had to do a lot of that for the FEIS, which is not typical. You don't typically have a site plan so far advanced at this stage, but we do because we've been going at this for a while. We could easily sit down and talk through that and generally identify, hey, these are what one bedroom unit buildings look like. These are where two bedrooms are and four bedrooms are, kind of scattered throughout, so it is intermixed, very equally throughout the property. And I think we're actually pretty close to that if we get through this next phase of the planning board process and finalizing our environmental impact statement, because that really, finalizing our environmental impact statement is gonna really define what this site plan is gonna look like. And then we can probably start that process.
Right, because I think Adele is aiming at the same thing I asked early in the meeting, and I know we're not there yet. Once we have an idea of how many units, whether they're one bedroom, and then we can compare it with
We have-
our list to see.
We have that right now. I think as part of the FEIS, we actually have already done that because we had to do that to determine, other impacts, both on traffic and all sorts of things. That how many units and unit types are in the project. So, and that's all based upon market analysis and things like that. So we're pretty far down that path. I think I'm probably 90% sure on what our unit mix is going to be on this project right now. And I could very easily go through that,
So if you have that, we could say 10% of the one bedroom, 10%, and then we have a better idea of
Let's
what we.
not get too.
I know it's
far ahead of planning. Let's
Yes,
let
the planning board has to.
do their work with the environmental impact statement. Once that's under control, approved, final, then perhaps we'll talk about coming back. Although I'll be honest with you, I want to do that with full knowledge of the planning board. If I'm going to move to that step, I want them to know that that's the request of our board to do that and get their feedback on that. But thank you very much for offering.
Yeah.
Eventually it's going to happen.
I think that's probably right. Get that final estimate up before on other things. They're wanting to design things. We just can't do that until this is finalized.
Right.
Okay, so that's fair. Soon, I hope.
Anything else from the public?
So how many bedrooms are you having?
One question about the village code, Do you have veteran preference for the affordable housing?
Um,
I think it's on our list.
is there
I don't
a
know.
priority for a veteran?
Yes.
Yes,
They get priority.
moves them
So
up.
once they can go in.
What?
It's a point system.
It's a point.
Yeah, like some of them, some complex people let them, skip the line if they're.
There's no skipping.
Yeah, there's no skipping
Yeah,
lines.
But we do have, you get points for having lived in New Falls for more than a year or 5 years or something like that, or
Right.
I think maybe are you a workforce person,
Yes,
teacher or
yeah.
something like that, so. So let me, so how many bedrooms are there?
The current proposal was 700 or 720, I forget what we came in with.
So,
And I think it is now through non-site plan, but site plan design is probably be about 620 maybe residents.
so at minimum, we're gonna have 72
Residents,
affordable bedrooms.
or we would do, well, if you want to
Whether,
do, however you want to do it, units or bedrooms, however you guys want to.
Right, okay.
Calculate the rate, but
Yeah,
we're gonna do those by unit, so if there's I think it's gonna be 200 units. Okay, and so 20 or 10% is 20, and we get up to 15, whatever it might be. The mix of the number of bedrooms in those units is gonna be determined by your board, you guys, to tell us what the mix is. Is it 50% ones, is it 20% ones? We'll work through that.
Okay, that's great. I mean, maybe you can let us know.
But that will help us
Yes,
design
okay,
and make decisions on how many units
okay,
of what type we use.
okay.
Because we know there's a certain demand for 1s, 2s, 4s, 5s, whatever it might be.
Okay.
We understand that's not from a student perspective.
Yep.
Not from a affordable perspective.
Okay, okay, and we can go through, look at our lists and
Yeah.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, and maybe we can have some input there. Okay,
100% once we get through the seeker.
okay.
Anything else from the board?
That's it for me.
Not at this point, thank you.
Okay, well,
But it's
thank
been
you
very
very much. We have a couple of other things we have to do on our agenda. You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like, or you can leave, that's fine. But thank you very much. This has been very, very helpful, I have to say. It's cleared up a lot of our concerns. And thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. But you didn't get to speak, so I just want to, did you have any questions?
Just liaising for the village.
Oh, okay.
Represents,
Okay, great.
and I'm happy that you're here.
Yes.
It's Mike. One thing we might want to suggest too, if the board wants to talk to your affordable housing experts in the future, how can they get in touch with them? That might be helpful too. If they have a question or want to go over something. Should we?
Yeah, we can, obviously, they'll make themselves available. Is that what you're referring to, working with the operator? Yeah, whatever. We need to.
Talk to the board if the board has a question or something comes up with the plan, or we can keep them in contact.
We don't need to wait weeks or months for the next meeting they can be responsive and communicate as need basis.
That's great. Maybe if the Peak Made representatives can just make sure that Nicole, the deputy village clerk, has the contact information and she can share that with us. But thank you very much. Great suggestion.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
All right.
It was nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Take care.
The next item on the agenda, these are just FYI. Thank you, Nicole, for putting these on here.